Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. So happy you could make it here today. So, today I'm going to just lay it out there on the line. I am here because I heard something that drove me absolutely crazy. And it's not that they're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and they're wrong. It's just not what I want my people, my audience, my friends, the people that I love and care about to believe. So, I want to set the record straight just so you know where I'm coming from. So I was listening to this podcast and I was hearing this woman talk about, and she was a very well known speaker, talk about how we have to take responsibility for our part in what we did in behaving poorly and making bad decisions and being wrong. And I was thinking this whole time, I'm like, yeah, that's true. I mean, a self reflection is a very big part of healing and growing and learning and moving forward and forgiveness and all of that. But then as I started listening, what I realized is that she was talking about accepting the fact that what we did as a young child at 7 or 8 years old was our fault. And her exact comment was, as soon as I accepted the fact that what happened to me when I was a child was my fault, I was able to move forward and heal. When I tell you goosebumps, I still get goosebumps. That was a week ago. And I'm still getting goosebumps when I talk about it, because no way do I ever want my listeners, the people that I love and care about, like I said, guys, if you're on this podcast, I'm doing this to offer hope and healing and inner child healing and fixing those wounds of the things that we could not control. And so today I'm here really, again, not to say I'm right and she's wrong, but to tell you the 6 reasons that it wasn't your fault as a child, that none of this was your fault as a child, and that before the age of 8 or 9 or 10 years old, none of this could have possibly been your fault. So, again, not me being right and her being wrong, me just having a very different perspective and feeling the need, because I always feel the need to say what's on my mind, to just set it straight for the record, for my podcast, for my listeners. So, number 1, children under the age of 8 are still going through cognitive development. They don't understand rationalization. They don't have those higher executive functioning skills, which decision making. They have no impulse control. They don't understand really chain of events as far as consequences, and they can't think through far enough to know, if I do this, this can happen. So at this stage, their brains, they're just not capable of doing that. They can't process these situations with enough complexity to look at the future and make a decision. They really can't. Number 2, they don't have autonomy and power. They are at the mercy and at the whim of all of their caretakers. So whether it's their mother, their father, their aunt, their uncle, their teacher, whoever it is, they are at their mercy to make sure that their environment is controlled. They can't say what they want to do. They can't protect themselves in difficult and harmful situations. They have to count on the people that they love and that are supposed to love them to do that for them. So never, if they did something out of survival, could that possibly have been their fault. They were supposed to be protected at that point. They didn't have their own power. Number 3 is they really don't have a sense of egocentric thinking, which means, or they do have a sense of egocentric thinking, I'm sorry. That means that they're looking at the world from a very small circle. They're looking at it from their own perspective. So what happens is they're not going to believe. They know their brain needs to protect them. Their brain needs to know, in order to survive, that the caregivers that are supposed to be caring for them are doing their job. So if something happens and mom treats them poorly, the only thing that their mind can internalize is, it can't be my mom. That is my protector. That is my caregiver. That is the person that's supposed to love me. So if it's not them, it must be me. So they internalize this thought of, I'm wrong, I'm bad, it must be me. For a good example is, if your mother works 3 jobs and she doesn't come home and feed you, you're not going to think at 8 years old, oh, my mother works 3 jobs. She's working very hard to put food on the table. all you're going to know is that you were abandoned, you were left alone. So in your mind, you think, oh, wow, she must not want to take care of me. She must not care. I must be doing something wrong so that is causing her to go out and do whatever she's doing. So you just have it's totally backwards how a mind thinks when you're little, but it's all about survival and it's all about protection. So even though you are not responsible for the actions of absolutely anybody at this age, you tend to believe you are. And that is how that it gets internalized. That is how I think this woman was talking about when she just figured it's kind of like forgiveness. If you figure, well, if I just forget and I let go of the animosity, it's going to free me. And so maybe, just maybe, she was thinking that if she just had to accept responsibility because it was easier to move on that way. So maybe I'm still trying to give this woman the benefit of the doubt without getting stressed out and without really getting riled, because again, I don't believe that it was ever your thought. You're not responsible for the actions of other people ever, but especially not at a young age. The other thing, number 4, is really the young children are highly vulnerable to manipulation, coercion, the emotional responses from other people and all of the adults around them. So they're easily influenced. Like I said, they don't have that autonomy, they don't have that power. So they don't stand up for themselves. They don't know that they even can. They don't know to assert themselves. Sometimes they don't assert themselves out of fear. Sometimes they just don't assert themselves because they don't think to do it. Honestly, they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. They're young. Their brains are young. So what do? They they're pressured. They're pressured to believe whatever is being told to them. They're pressured to believe what and be influenced by whatever is around them, even if it is wrong and it is toxic. So they have a lot of psychological vulnerability. Number 5, they really haven't gone through a stage of moral development yet. They really don't know right from wrong. So they haven't been able, their brains are not complex enough to really think through that. The psychologist that really talked a lot about this was Jean Piaget. Piaget, however, people say it all different ways, but he really was the one that talked about how the moral reasoning in children is not developed yet at that age. So they're beginning to understand, but all they can do is know right from wrong by the rules that are set for them. I'll give you a good example. I used to get in trouble for laughing. For whatever reason, my mom thought it was terribly wrong for me to laugh. Like I would get slapped, I would get hit, I would be told, stop laughing. There is nothing funny here. So laughing was bad. Laughing was wrong. So as an adult, as I started going into adulthood, when I would laugh, I would immediately stop and be like, oh gosh, what am I doing wrong? That's right from wrong. We only know what we know at that age by the rules that are set for us. So if we're told wrong rules or the rules are backwards or ass backwards, whatever you want to call it so that I don't cuss, that is what gets ingrained into our brains as right and wrong. So we don't know right and wrong. Again, if you go back to what I was talking about earlier, because we don't understand consequences. So we can't come up with Tammy's little pro con list that she makes, I like to make. If you've ever listened to any of my episodes where I talk about a pro con list, I talk a lot about pro con lists. At 8 years old, you don't go to think about something and say, okay, well, what are the consequences of this? This could happen if this happens, and this could happen if that doesn't happen. We don't think that far ahead. So we really don't have the moral development to even be wrong. So, how the HE double hockey sticks could we possibly be making bad decisions when all we can do is go by the people around us as to know what is right and wrong? And the last one, guys, and this just really sums it up. At this age, the responsibility is not ours. It lies with our caregivers. It lies with our mother, our father, our aunts, our uncles, our teachers, our pastors, whoever it is. That is who is supposed to create the safe, nurturing atmosphere, the atmosphere filled with integrity, the atmosphere filled with right and wrong, and a correct version of that, correct perspective on that. That is who is supposed to instill that at the early ages, not us. not us. So it is that person's job to fill the environment with it safe. Children need to know safety, security, love, joy, happiness. They deserve to know all that, and it is the person's responsibility to teach you all that. So if a child goes through neglect, abuse, any other adverse experience, the fault lies with the caregiver, not the child. Not the child. The A child's innocence, I mean, their dependence on people, their innocence, their limiting understanding of the world is what's going on right here. So I know I probably sound very riled up right now, and I'm probably getting over the top emotional about this, but I think back to all the years that I've been undoing all the beliefs that my parents put in me, or my mother specifically, about not being good, and about not being worthy, and about always being wrong and not doing the right thing. And it's almost like, I mean, and I've gotten through that. I've worked on inner child work for many, many, many years, as I know some of you have heard me talk about. I still write letters between myself back and forth, and how I can, love on that inner child, and apologize to her and be there for her and let her know she's safe and everything else. So when I hear this, and it puts me back into that state of, oh, maybe I was wrong. Boy, let me tell you, my friends, my blood boils. Because if you don't think about it logically, think about it scientifically. I've just given you 6 scientific things that talk about development in your brain, and when you rationalize, and when you just make decisions, and when you do all this. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture yourself as that 5 or 6 year old that was being abused, or that was being neglected, or that was being mistreated, or unloved, or never hugged. And I want you to try to muster up one idea after listening to what I've said, how that could possibly be your fault. Because if you can, we need to talk. We need to talk. We need to chat, because that is a belief that I will never let one person who listens to me speak go on believing. And whatever we have to do, however much it takes, however long it takes to get that idea that you were wrong, or that you were at fault for anything you did as a child, we're going to do it. We're going to work through it, and we're going to go for it. So I invite you now, if you enjoyed any of this, if you resonated with this, if you're still feeling some of that guilt and shame left over from your childhood, excuse me, reach out to me. Let's have a talk. I would absolutely love to chat with you about any